Can Prince Harry ever not look like a petulant brat when it comes to visiting his family and going to the United Kingdom? I don't know if that is possible because when it comes to visiting London, Harry has this absolute massive chip on his shoulder over security. And apparently, according to the latest report from the Telegraph, Prince Harry declined a royal residence in part because it would not give him a security escort in and out and follow him around town because all the security guys have nothing better to do than follow Prince Harry around London while he does his own self promotional tour. At this point, Harry's whole obsession with security is just starting to get aggravating and just frankly, really delusional. Harry, yes, there might be a security risk to him from time to time and to his family. But the reality is, when it comes to his role within the UK government, he's technically constitutionally irrelevant at this point. And the other thing is, part of the reason Harry and Meghan perhaps maybe have a bit more of a risk than some of the other royals is because of Harry and Meghan and their things like going on Oprah Winfrey, doing the Netflix reality TV show, doing Spotify, all these different things where they've given out. Oh, and of course, number one, spare. Why in the world should the UK government, taxpayers, anybody pay any additional money? Because Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's own decisions have resulted maybe in a profile they can't quite contain. I'm sorry, but I don't think anybody's tax dollars should be used to rectify Harry and Meghan's mistakes. Their mistakes are perhaps what is their biggest downfall here, and yet they refuse to admit it. And Prince Harry missed out on time potentially with his father by declining this offer. So we will explore this topic today because it is time to give Harry a little bit of dose of reality. He is no longer slaying imaginary dragons, he is slaying imaginary dragonflies. So we will look at this. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes the drama going on behind the scenes. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, that would be absolutely fantastic. I also have some spots left for the Scotland trip. So if you guys are interested in hanging out with me and some other royal followers in Scotland, we just have a couple of days. If anybody is still interested in checking that out, there will be a link down below for sure. Of course, the Germany and Czech Republic trip for Christmas time is still available as well. But Scotland is wrapping up, I believe, on the 25th. So you have 3 days if you are interested to sign up. I'm so excited about this trip. I don't think it'll happen, but I was kind of like, oh man, because usually the royals come to Edinburgh for sometime in July. Usually it's the first week. So unfortunately, we probably won't see Charles, but I can't help but think or hope. Oh, especially because of the opening of Parliament, but that may change things. Anyways, I was like really hoping maybe the royals would be there, but now we have the snap election, guys. So, real quick news if you haven't heard, there is going to be a snap election in the UK. I do not know how UK politics works. Do not ask me. The only thing I know is that apparently all the royals, pretty much all their engagements, are going to be canceled until July 4th. Yep. Yep. I guess even Trooping the Color, maybe even the state visit from Japan is on the list of potential canceled engagements. All of Charles's royal engagements for this week have been canceled. Williams as well. They will go to Normandy for D-Day, but other things will look really iffy. And I just can't help but think of why this has been such a rough year for the Windsors so far, and it's just been things that are completely out of their control. Charles can't help if the government decides that they need a snap election. He can't help that. He can't help if he gets cancer. He can't help that Catherine gets cancer. But I'm hoping that maybe the fervor over the elections will mean that there's less focus on Catherine and the stupidity that is Where is Kate? Because all the royals will be out of the spotlight because none of them can really work publicly. And the reason they do this apparently is because they don't want to distract from the campaigning. So, anyways, some of our royal watching may be diminished over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, Trooping, the state visit, a couple of the other really big engagements go forward because sometimes you just can't totally miss out on those. But I hope it gives Catherine a little bit of reprieve. And I just wanted to give shout out to Anna Lucia Diamonds here today. I'm wearing my tennis bracelet that I wear every day that sparkles and makes me happy. I have my X ring. I have my hoop earrings here and a necklace. So if you guys are interested in any of those pieces, I will make sure to link them down below. And then there will be a link up above as well if you are interested. All right, guys. Prince Harry, he just screams toddler throwing his fists on the ground, pounding the pavement, crying as to why he can't get that particular lollipop, even though he gave back that particular lollipop. This is the level of logic we're dealing with here. Childhood toddler logic. Because here's the reality of the situation. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they decided the British royal family and working royals, it just wasn't doing it for them. And so they decided that they were going to issue essentially an ultimatum. But they were kind of, quite frankly, stupid in their planning of this because unfortunately Harry and Meghan had no power in this scenario. And what you never want to do when going into negotiations is lay your cards out on the table without any leverage to back it up. And that's just what the two of them did. I think in their minds they thought they were so stinking important because they go on and on about Meghan's connection to the Commonwealth sometimes and all these things that they really thought that their plan for this would not go wrong. So they created Megxit and they told the world, yes, still be half in, half out. This is what other royals do, right? Wrong. The monarchy took one look at their ultimatum and went, no, I'm so sorry. You can't do that. So you have a choice here. We can't abide by this because you essentially want to act as your own agents here. And the reality is, if you are part of a monarchy, and this is true of all monarchies, you are either fully in or you're fully out. You can kind of do the half in, half out thing, but it's under very particular circumstances that that works. And it only works in that instance. So if you go out and beyond that, then you're kind of in this situation where you're rogue agents, and then that just doesn't work. And so the monarchy was like, here, you got two options. You either are fully out or you're fully in. There is no this half in, half out thing. Because even the quote unquote half in, half out royals that they mentioned, like Beatrice and Eugenie that they were alluding to, are not really even in, half in. Yes, they go to some royal events. Yes, they do trooping. Yes, they even do Buckingham Palace garden parties from time to time, but they're not compensated by the state for doing that. They do that of their own volition. So Harry and Meghan's thing, because they still wanted the sovereign grant. They weren't going to take Charles's money, but they wanted sovereign grant money while they funded their staff at Buckingham Palace or whatever, would also going do and trying to do the Hollywood celebrity thing on the side. Obviously, didn't work. So the monarchy's like, okay, you got your choices. And Harry and Meghan's like, well, we're going to be out then. Because I think they thought that the monarchy would just come begging back for them. Of course, again, didn't happen. And the monarchy even gave them a year's time to say, okay, do you guys really want this? And of course, obviously, COVID happened and everybody got locked down, which sort of worked for the royals, worked for Harry and Meghan in some ways. And Harry and Meghan managed to sign these major deals. But given that they are now private citizens of their own volition, apparently the two people, including one who is a graduate of Northwestern University, which makes me question the education at Northwestern University, were shocked and horrified that their security was taken away, their taxpayer funded security, when they were no longer working for the state. This is not rocket science. This is not rocket science. I don't understand why Harry is so flummoxed by this outcome, but he is. But he is. And again, it severely makes me question both of their intelligences because this should be obvious writing on the wall. Princess Madeline lives in Florida. Yes, her profile is much smaller. But what does she not have? Swedish government funded security protecting her home, watching her kids, because they can live mostly anonymously, which is fine. But it's like, but she doesn't have that. Why? Because she's not really working for the state. Now, granted, if she went and did an engagement on behalf of the state and maybe there was a security risk, they might be willing to fund that because she does sort of still somewhat work with the palace from time to time. She does engagements in Florida where she lives. She's soon moving back to Sweden, where she's technically acting basically as an arm of the Swedish government and the royal family. But again, Harry and Meghan didn't have that option. And it wasn't really the royals that said no. It was an organization called Revic, which determines what people within the UK government who are essential enough to require full time security. And most of the time they deem for the royals, it should be relegated to just Charles and Camilla. The time the Queen was still included as well. This was before Prince Philip died, so he was included, and the Waleses and their family. And Harry would have been covered under this for some of the time. But as the Waleses kids got older, his security, I think, needs would diminish, or the government would see his security needs diminishing because he's not as high ranking member. He's not as important anymore. And this the same happened with obviously Anne and Edward. They do not get 24/7 security if they're on royal properties. They're basically protected under that overall apparatus that's part of what Andrew had as well for a bit, though that has been rescinded by King Charles. And so he's kind of on his own. So the government has to make these decisions, though, because you're justifying protecting people 24/7, which costs millions upon millions of pounds. And you need to have a good reason for it. And Harry and Meghan attempting to make it as producers in Hollywood is not a good reason. But Harry, again, cause and effect seems to be an absolute mystery with Harry and Meghan. These two people never seem to understand that actions have consequences. I don't know why I find that incredibly aggravating, just because I just find it so incredibly silly. It's just silliness. Like, why is this a shock to you? Why is this so hard for you to understand? Why are you so like, it's like messes with your mind all of a sudden that you got told no. But for Harry and Meghan, it is. And when it comes to visiting the royal family, here's the reality too. Harry and Meghan are not covered under the general security apparatus of the royals, but if they go to major events, like all the members of the family, they're covered under that general security. So all members of the extended royal family had a bit of security when they went to the coronation. Same thing happens with trooping, any other big events. But overall, Zara Phillips Tyndall and her husband Mike, they live without security. Peter Phillips, Princess Eugenie, and Beatrice do as well. And Princess Beatrice, as far as I'm aware, still lives at St. James's Palace, which I think will come up here in this issue. But Harry, oh no, he does not want to do anything if he does not get his security demands met. And Harry, you don't have the leverage to make this happen. And he's holding this as a weapon against his father, something his father can't control. Because again, this comes down from the government. They've decided Harry left. He's no longer as constitutionally relevant as he was before, anyways. He just kicked himself out. And so they're like, well, we're not required to pay this for you. He did get a bit of security escort when he came and visited his father. But for the rest of the time, they're like, no, this was back when his father's cancer diagnosis was first announced in January. But let's get back to the most recent reports here. And let's start off with the Times of London piece and then move to the recent Telegraph piece where we got this extra tidbit about Harry's little petulant temper tantrum over his security. So the title here, The King Offered Harry a Royal Residence for His Visit. But Harry decided no, it wasn't going to work. The Duke of Sussex did not see Charles during a trip to London this week. This was obviously earlier here in May, but there are different versions of who asked or did not ask to see whom. So again, this sort of rigmarole is starting to get really dull, but it's again part of Harry and Meghan's ridiculous PR machine. And so it says the king agreed last week to request from Harry to stay in a royal residence, and that request was met. But Harry chose to stay in a hotel. The friends point out that staying in a royal residence would have made visiting his father logistically easier given the competing pressures on Charles's diary, especially as he's trying to get back to work. It's the latest twist in another awkward week for father and son. Emphasis on son, who have different versions of who asked or did not ask to see whom. So those close to Harry insist he put in a request to see his father well in advance of the visit, which was long on the radar. They point out that Harry wants to come to the UK. He must give 25 days warning to the King and Home Office to request security. And this is only if, again, they review his request, see if there are any credible threats, and then they issue security. If not, they don't. Friends of the King, who has cancer, continue to stress that to the best of their understanding, Harry neither requested to see his father nor invited him to attend the service last Tuesday to celebrate the Invictus anniversary. But sources close to Harry expressed their bemusement that Charles did not fight his cancer treatments. The king made time to attend a Buckingham Palace garden party on Wednesday afternoon, hold his weekly audience with Rishi Sunak that evening, and undertake a military engagement in Wiltshire on Thursday. Now, there are several obvious glaring issues here, and that Harry's friends express bemusement is a joke because guess what Charles was doing? He was meeting with his people. It's not just a garden party. This is honoring people who are part of charities and different events and honoring the British people. Next, he was meeting with, who is that? Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the guy who runs the government, asks for a meeting, or they have meetings scheduled every week. Yes, they do that. And he was at a military engagement. When Harry and Meghan fans go, well, they don't care about the military because, they don't support the Invictus Games. It's like, what was Charles doing here? He was supporting the military by going on an engagement. Charles has a big boy job. It's called being the head of the state of the United Kingdom. Harry is attempting being a producer and failing miserably at it in Hollywood. Those are not the same things. Charles has a big boy role. He has a bigger picture here. Harry is just a petulant brat upset that things can't go his way. This should not be difficult to understand. That Charles has real world obligations that Harry cannot even fathom. And Harry seems to want everybody to give up and drop everything when he comes into town. And that's just not going to happen. Even if the event was put on months ago, I'm sure the Buckingham Palace garden party, guess what? That was also planned probably a couple months before Harry's plans were made. So, unfortunately, for the reality is, Harry is just not as important as what Charles needs to do to represent his country, the monarchy, and his people. Harry's little temper tantrums don't matter that much. He just ends up looking like a petulant brat. It's all very sad, said a friend of Charles. While it is true that the king is understandably wary about meeting with Harry, given the publicity circus that seems to surround all such visits, he did, of course, agree to see his son at the most vulnerable moment of his illness in February and at very short notice. And he did that, but he also wanted to usher Harry out as soon as possible because he had something to do. He was getting up to Sandringham to kind of recuperate and everything. And so he did only give Harry at the most like 30 minutes of his time. So not that much. While he was hardly going to roll out the red carpet, the moment this Invictus trip was announced, with doctors advising him to focus on his treatment and recovery and obviously serving as king. The idea that he refused to find space in his diary, well, let's say recollections may vary once again. And that is Harry and Meghan's problem. They just can't seem to have a good handle on the truth. And people just poke holes in things. Things just don't make a lot of sense. And if a palace property was offered and Harry refused, well, that's on Harry. And we'll see why in the Telegraph article, which is interesting. A friend of Harry's also said, I can't imagine that request from Harry to Charles fell through the gaps, even if they didn't get a request, which I don't believe. Could His Majesty not have made a request to see his son? It is widely known he was coming. But again, Charles is trying to get back to work. He's not there to placate Harry's ego, he is there to work. And Harry and his friends need to get a grip. They need to get a grip because this stuff just makes him look so bad in terms of Harry. The missed opportunity deeply stung Harry. It surprises me a lot, a friend said. I was fully expecting them to meet. I know that's what he wanted to happen, and I don't know when he's next back. But of course, again, that is Harry's problem. Harry cannot seem to understand that the royal family can't work around his schedule. He needs to work around theirs. And if he doesn't make the effort, he's not going to see them because Charles, again, has a lot of other obligations. So does William. And so they can't just drop everything when Harry wants to talk with them for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or complain again. Why won't you apologize to Meghan? You need to apologize to us. They just don't have the time for that. And so it's same thing with the Jubilee. Harry and Meghan came into town right before the Jubilee started, like the day before, went to the trooping event, and then left before the event even ended. And they held a birthday party for Lilibet, but everybody was busy, so nobody attended. Why? Because they didn't make the time in their schedule to accommodate people who had their schedule set out probably a year in advance. Like, this is not hard. And Harry knows this, and Meghan knows this too. And so they use this as a battering ram against the royal family, even though logically the burden is on Harry and Meghan to make the time because they don't have real big person jobs. They have sort of fake jobs they're trying to do. The royal family has real jobs, real responsibilities to an entire country, not to their Netflix overlords. So Harry's spokesperson said that it was unfortunately not possible due to His Majesty's full program. The Duke is, of course, understanding of his father's diary commitments and various other priorities and hopes to see him soon. Well, it would help Harry if you actually made the effort to see your dad instead of just going, well, I'm just going to flit into town for 2 days. Do you have some time? And he's like, no, because my schedule is like already full, Harry. I am king, I'm not just the average dad. I'm king of the UK. So, yeah, I have people that I must report to. Harry just doesn't seem to understand. But we got some additional context now from the Telegraph. And so Prince Harry's rejected King's invitation to stay at royal residence. And there was a key, key thing here. So it says that obviously Harry spent 3 nights in London, but did not see the king. And so he apparently is said to have made several personal requests for a meeting on arrival in the UK, issued a statement stating that he and his father would not meet, suggesting it was because the king was too busy. So Harry obviously tried, but again, probably didn't try soon enough. Probably was making demands Charles could not meet, and so it just didn't happen. So he did, of course, Charles did agree to a request for Harry to stay at an undisclosed royal residence, although we can kind of guess which one it is based on the information provided here. Had the invitation been accepted, it would have provided an opportunity to spend some time together outside of their hectic schedules because there is time, breakfast and dinner, maybe. You have some downtime in the evening, whatever, coffee, something. It could have happened, but Harry didn't like what he was offered. It says the Duke declined because the offer did not come with any security provision, meaning he would have been staying in a visible location with a public entrance and exit points and no police protection. So he stayed at a hotel instead. Okie dokie. So all royal residents are covered, as it says here, are among the best protected properties in the country, with armed officers stationed at the gates. So yeah. However, the Duke's primary concern is the level of security he is afforded outside. Well, here you again. You left. I don't understand why this is so hard for you. You left. It's not available to you anymore. So I imagine, and again, I suggested this earlier. I think he was offered Clarence House or Buckingham Palace. He was not offered Kensington Palace, which I think has a little bit more of a private entrance and exit. He was offered two of the biggest in the country. And the reason was, again, is that Harry is not trusted. So when he requests a royal property, they determine what property to give him based on how well they can observe him while he's at that property, because he does not get free reign anymore. Harry lost that right and privilege. And so when he goes to these residences, they need to make sure he's not taking pictures, that he's not inviting unauthorized people to the residences. They need to make sure of so many things. So they do this by telling Harry, well, we're going to allow you to come to these residences, which, yes, have very public entrances and exits. I 100% agree with that because I've seen actually Charles exit Buckingham Palace, and that was really fun. And obviously, he goes back to Clarence House. So I imagine the offer was Clarence House or maybe St. James's Palace, which is technically on the same complex. But Harry lost his right to a more private, maybe accommodating situation for himself because he has made himself so untrustworthy. They just cannot allow him free access to any real property. And I'm sorry, yes, it might be a public entrance and exit, but guess what? Princess Beatrice does it. She lives at St. James's Palace and she does just fine. I think you probably would too. Again, Harry's delusions about this just make him look so incredibly bad because he needs to accept his lot in life now. It's not the same as his brothers, it's not the same as his fathers. And this has been the writing on the wall since day one. I actually covered this in my recent video for the Crown Report, talking about Prince Laurent, who also talks about how, he has this big security risk and people need to protect him. He's a prince in Belgium and his brother is king. And you just feel this petulance that they're just angry that they're not the king. But that's always been the case. They knew this writing on the wall since their birth. This should not be a surprise. This should not be a surprise. But here's the other thing about Harry and Meghan. Yes, Harry and Meghan are deeply unlikable, and maybe that increases their security risks. But when you do Netflix, when you do Spotify, when you do a memoir, when you do various interviews, when you call your family racists, essentially, that's really what they did, even though Harry tried to backtrack it, even though they let that narrative go for like 2 years. They have an increased security risk that they created themselves. Why should anybody else have to pay for their mess? That's what really irritates me is that somebody's so arrogant that they think they don't need to face the consequences for their own actions and that they are just like, well, why isn't anybody protecting me? Because I said all this stuff and now everybody's mad at me and why isn't anybody protecting me? It's like because you made the mess. Why is anybody else picking up your mess for you? We learned this when we were what? Two, three, four. When you make a mess, it's your job to pick it up. This is the same as Harry putting in his memoir the number of people he allegedly killed in Afghanistan. And then all of a sudden, he's like, well, my security risk is increased because I said that. It's like, so we have to pay because of your stupidity. I'm sorry, but I don't think anybody should have to pay for your stupid. So if this is the mess you made, unfortunately, you're the one who has to live with this. And I think that's the case for Harry in this instance. He needs to live with it. He needs to recognize that no, he won't get whatever he wants anytime he comes to the UK. He is beholden to a greater authority, which is that of the UK government, his father, his brother, just so many things. And so Harry really needs to have a reality check here. And unfortunately, he's just not ever going to get the security that he wants. And he's the one who's going to have to live with that. So, guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Harry's little petulant temper tantrums. I'd love to get your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon. Bye.